Hello again, everybody, and welcome to Monday's edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live. The energy is a-popping in this room. We've been off for 2 weeks, but we are back. I'm telling you now, if we did not make it back today, I might have jumped out of an airplane without a parachute. But we are back, and I am so glad. Good to see you, Matt.
Good to see you, Paul.
All right.
How was the time off?
Rough, man. Rough. You know, I'm addicted to this stuff, and it's like withdrawal when I'm not here for 2 weeks.
The calm before the storm.
Oh, there's nothing calm about it for me, man. I'm a mess. It's not good. It's not good. But we are back. So we are here for the next hour to talk Giants football with you. As always, the show is presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. Our number, well, I'm not going to give it to you quite now because we got a little bit of a board problem. We're trying to fix that. We hope that in the next hour we're getting to talk to some folks with the Packers and the Bears so that we can preview our upcoming opponents for this 2025 season. But as it stands right now, we're having a little electronical issues here. We got some gremlins in the machinery. So we're going to talk to you first up. We can't take any phone calls at the moment. If you want to hit us up on Twitter at #GiantsChat, I'll have Matt take a look at the Twitter page.
We also have the YouTube chat open.
Is that open as well?
If you're watching the stream
Beautiful.
On YouTube and the chat's there, feel free to chime in with any questions, comments.
You will be the monitor.
I will monitor.
All right, there we go. So again, you can hit us up on YouTube or through Twitter at #GiantsChat. We will try to do as best as we can given the circumstances that we have been handed this morning. Now, of course, this is the Giants Podcast Studio presented by Hackensack Meridian Health. Keep getting better. Got to keep remembering those things because it's been 2 weeks since we've announced it. So got to get that back into the brainwaves. The Giants did have a piece of news, actually 2 pieces of news over the 2 weeks while we were on hiatus. Let's go to the first one involving the roster. The Giants had put tight end Darren Waller on the reserve retired list when he walked away from football a year ago. You know, if you know the story, he had a lot of personal issues, decided he wasn't committed to football anymore, and then went on to have I guess a good music career. I don't know. I saw some of the videos.
No.
It didn't do much for me.
You could classify it as a lot of things. I don't know if a good music career is exactly how I would put it.
Well, he had a couple of videos. Hold on a second. We're going to get an update from John. John, what do you got for us?
Yeah, no calls.
No calls today.
No calls today.
All right, so the phone lines are down, so stick to YouTube and stick to Twitter, and we will try to do as much as we possibly can. In the meantime, Pearson, if you could hit up our 2 guests and let them know that we're not going to be able to deal with them today because we can't get out, right?
Yeah,
so we can't get
phone
out.
Lines are completely shot right now.
Oh, wait a minute. That's actually, you know what? If we put our guest on speaker, no, okay. Anyway, in the meantime, let's talk about Darren Waller for a second. So he did a few videos.
Yeah, he put some music out. I personally consider myself, somewhat of a rap hip hop fan, and
much more than me.
Wasn't for me. Well, let's just put it that way.
Okay. So for some reason, he has decided that he wants to play football again. All right, fine. But because Joe Schoen had put him on the reserve retired list, the Giants still own the rights to him.
Yep.
So good news. Tells the Giants, I think I want to play football again, but I don't want to play in New York. Now, from what I understand, and you got to help me here, Miami is a hip-hop hotbed, right? Is that not a hot music hotbed?
Music, yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't know if he wanted to go to Miami simply to help his music career. I think he might have just wanted to play in Miami. Miami is a fun city that a lot of people do.
There's good weather there.
Good weather. It's warm. It does have a lively nightlife. If that's what you're looking for, I don't know, but
okay.
One way or the other, I think this was obviously great for the Giants because this was someone that all of us, to be honest, kind of forgot about for the last year because he's been retired. So the fact that the Giants were able to get anything in return for him, I think is obviously a win. And,
yeah,
the Giants got a 2026 6th round pick.
Yes.
And they gave up the rights to Darren Waller, and a conditional 7th rounder in 2027.
Comes back to the Giants.
So now,
if he does certain things, which we don't know, by the way, what those triggers are.
Correct. But now, in next year's draft, the Giants have their own 6th-round pick. They now have the Dolphins' 6th-round pick. And let's not forget, they also have the Cowboys' 6th-round pick, because before the beginning of last season? Or maybe the year before, the Giants traded Jordan Phillips. It was last year. Jordan Phillips, the veteran defensive tackle, to the Cowboys, and it did
nothing for them.
It was Giants gave up their 2026 7th-round pick for the Cowboys' 2026 6th-round pick, but it was conditional in that he had to be on the Cowboys roster for 2 games. Well, guess what? He was on the roster for 2 games, and then Dallas decided to cut him. But that's all the Giants needed. So now the Giants, they don't have a 7th-round pick next year, but there's 3 6th-round picks, which, at least for me and my digital department, we love to hear that there are no 7th-round picks, because that's the part of the draft that, is a little difficult for us to prepare ahead of time. And
yeah, I get it.
And after a very long weekend, we would rather have earlier picks than those very, very late picks. So I think this was, obviously in the grand scheme of things, is it the most monumental trade ever? No, but to get anything for someone that was completely, out of the picture, I think you chalk that up as a win.
Well, it's a good deal, because if you're the Giants, and Joe Shane is very much into having assets. He views every draft pick as an asset. Either because he thinks he's going to get a player who might do something for him, or he can use it as part of a trade. And it doesn't matter if it's a 5, a 6, or a 7. As you just mentioned, he's going to look at those third-day picks, even those late ones, and say, I can still do something with those. Some GMs are a little less emphasizing of third-day picks, especially later picks. Not Joe. Joe thinks the more you have, the better.
100%. I mean, we've seen over the years, Joe loves to move up, move down the draft board. Guess what? Having more picks just makes it easier to be able to make those moves. You might say, 3 6th-round picks. Like, who cares about that? Well, if the Giants, let's say, are trying to move up at the start of day 3, move up in the 4th round, guess what? Having those 3 6th-round picks, that is going to help them be able to move up and maybe get a player that could step right in and have a big impact. Again, we're talking about next year's draft, so this is towards the 2026 season.
Yes.
Now, obviously, there's a lot to happen between now and then, but still.
Correct.
The more picks, the merrier. And especially if you can get it slightly earlier than the 7th round. I mean, again, you sign me up for that.
All right, so that's the deal, right? The Dolphins get Darren Waller, or the rights to Darren Waller. And by the way I understood it was the Giants had given him permission to talk to Miami, make sure that they were copacetic and that they had the fit for him, that he was willing to come back and play there. And that's why the Giants then allowed the trade to go through. Again, they get a 6 and they get a conditional 7 in 2027. I'd love to know what those conditions are. We're probably not going to find those out for a while.
Yeah, I feel like, the Rappaports
or
Garofalo, someone will tweet it eventually. But regardless, I mean, the Giants have the 6th-round pick from Miami. That's not conditional.
No.
So we have their pick. Now, I guess he needs to fulfill certain requirements. Otherwise, the pick, I guess, comes back to us. But then I don't get it. Then we just get a pick for nothing, basically? The pick for Waller.
The 6th rounder in 26 is in stone.
Yeah, that is set. And I guess whether we give up the 2027 7th-round pick depends on Waller meeting whatever conditions he needs to with Miami. Right. Otherwise, that pick just comes back to us.
No, it goes back to them. They're giving it up.
No. The Giants gave up the conditional 2027 7th-round pick. The only thing the Giants got in this trade was the 2026 6th-round pick. Look, this is from the website.
Okay.
So then
I got it reversed.
So if Waller does not meet whatever the requirements are,
this is what happens to my brain when I'm not here for 2 weeks.
It's okay. Get this out now before training camp starts.
The day it was reported, it was that the Giants were getting the 2 picks.
Yes,
how did this change?
The original, from whatever was reported right off the bat, turned out to be not the exact terms, which is why we say all the time, these reporters put out reports of deals, whether it's trades, free agent signings, whatever, you got to wait for it to actually be announced officially.
Right.
Otherwise, it's not set in stone until the teams officially announce it. And this is a perfect case because you're right. It was first being reported that the Giants were potentially giving up a 7th-round pick as well.
I was on vacation, and I'd gotten a note about the deal. And so I looked it up, and all afternoon it was reported as Giants giving Waller to Miami for 2 picks. So when did it change? A day or two later? 2 days later? 3 days later?
That I don't know. I never
saw it.
I was out of the country when this happened.
Okay.
So I'm not exactly sure. But yeah, I mean, the terms again.
I never saw that update.
These are great terms for the Giants.
Sure they are.
At the most that the Giants are giving up is a 2027 7th-round pick again, because Darren Waller was not playing for the Giants again. So
no.
So the most the Giants are giving up in this deal is a 7th-round pick in 2027. And again, if Waller does not meet whatever conditions are required to fulfill that part of the trade, then the pick comes back, and the Giants basically just got a 6th-round pick next year for basically nothing. So again, not the biggest trade ever, but it is definitely a plus and a small W for the Giants.
Oh, yeah,
going
for
into
sure.
Next year's draft.
For sure. All right. So that's number one. Now, as far as the tight end room is concerned, there's no doubt you mentioned the Giants basically had not even given him another thought because he had been retired for a year. Well, you know what? This tight end room doesn't need him. I mean, let's be honest. Between Theo Johnson and Daniel Bellinger and Manhertz, Dulcich, the Giants, Fedoni, Giants have tight ends from here all the way down to Hoboken. I mean, they've got a bunch of them. So I don't think they needed him at all anyway. So even if he wanted to come back and play here, I don't know that there would have been room for him.
Yeah, look, when Darren Waller is healthy, he is a phenomenal pass-catching tight end. There's no doubt about it. The biggest thing is, though, his last couple seasons playing, he was unable to stay healthy.
No question.
He always dealt with injuries. Even when he was starting to finally get hot with the Giants when he suffered an injury, and then I believe he came back towards the end of the season. And
I'll tell you what, I still thought he was a disappointment.
Look, I mean, the Giants gave up, the 100th pick in the whatever draft, 2023, 2024 NFL draft, for one season to Darren Waller. Clearly, they didn't expect it to be one season. I don't think you give up a late 3rd-round pick for just knowing it'll be 1 year. But yeah, obviously that move did not end up playing out, obviously, how the Giants would have hoped. But, again, they're getting some sort of asset for him now. Again, for a player that was long out of the picture for a year now. So, yeah, there was no way he was suiting up for the Giants again. The Giants, it seems like the Giants are pretty content with their tight end room right now. I know there's been so much buzz around Theo Johnson these last couple of months, starting with Russell Wilson. I mean, again, we've spoken about this.
Loves him.
That Russell Wilson loves him and speaks about him all the time. And, the group of tight ends are part of the group that Russell Wilson, I'm sure it was Russell Wilson leading the way, but the Giants offense basically met last week. I want to say in San Diego for one of those big throwing sessions.
Yeah.
And the tight ends were there. I believe it was Manhertz, Theo Johnson, Bellinger, and I want to say Fedoni. I'm not positive if Fedoni was there.
I didn't see the list. What I did see was that there were 18 offensive players, I believe.
Yeah, I saw the group photo with.
Oh, I didn't see a picture.
I assume was all of them, if not most of them.
Okay.
And for sure, Bellinger, Theo, and Chris Manhertz were there. I want to say Fedoni was there as well. I'm just not 100% positive.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the Giants are happy with the tight end room. They want to see what Theo Johnson could do. I think they expect a pretty big season from Theo Johnson, honestly. He had that foot injury last year right as he was starting to heat up. But he's been a full go since the start of spring practices. So there's no reason to believe once training camp starts next week that he won't be fully out there participating and doing everything. And then it's a big year too for him. And now with what we hope to be more consistent quarterback play, Theo Johnson could be one of the players that makes the biggest jump this upcoming season.
Oh, there's no doubt. He certainly could be. He has all the tools for it. The other news item that kind of happened while we were gone for 2 weeks, Eli Manning and his group apparently are not going to make any attempt to bid for the 10% of the Giants, which still leaves Michael Strahan and his group in play. But We don't have any details or any information on any of that, other than Eli apparently was on a pod or somebody's show, and he is no longer part of the group that's going to be in the running. They've pulled out of it. I think Eli's quote was something about maybe it's too expensive.
Yeah, shocker. Buying a piece of an NFL franchise is too expensive. I mean, it goes for most of us.
I was just going to say, I mean, if there's anybody who might be able to do it, right? But not to be. So that was the other piece of news that came out over the last 2 weeks. Frankly, it was really slow, and that's what you want. Now, I did see, and I'm not going to go into any details on this one, but there was another fireworks issue with another player this summer. And I only bring that up, and I don't want to get into it. I only bring it up for one reason, and one reason only. Because when we tell you at the end of our programming, and we go on hiatus for the summer, and when we say, look, in all honesty, every coach and GM is scared about getting that phone call that somebody did something either accidental or foolish, and it turned out to be a bad thing. Because 95% of the time, if you get a call during this month, the early part of the month, it is bad. It's usually not good. And lo and behold, it happened. Now, again, I don't want to get into it because I don't want to make any judgment, pass any judgment on the player who was not a New York Giant. But they're talking about the fact that he had an injured eye. There seems to be some conflicting reports about how serious it is. They are, by the way, on the Giants' schedule this year. They do play the Giants.
This is the Chargers.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, I don't know if you said the Chargers.
I purposely didn't say because I didn't want to.
I'm not saying who, but
okay. So yes, the Chargers do play the Giants this year, and this is a predominant player. I mean, this is a name, okay? And if for whatever reason he can't play, yeah, that's a big deal. Now, again, they're not saying for sure. There seems to be some reports that says it's not going to be that bad and he'll be back right away. There's others that say he might not be. So, but this is why we talk about that. It's a legit stressor for every coach and GM.
Yeah, look, the dead period is when the period between minicamp ending and training camp starting. And we say every year, all the time, that is the time of year, a 5-week period, as much as it might, make our jobs discussing, trying to come up with things to talk about for an hour each day a little more difficult. But that is the time period where you want no news. Because most of the time, if you do get news, it's not good news. Obviously, there was an exception this year. The news about the Darren Waller trade came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
That was during this dead period, and it ended up being a positive bit of news. But for the most part, around the league, any news that comes out about a player now is not good. Whether it's the fireworks issue with that player, another player got arrested this past weekend, like no good comes from someone making headlines right now. That is why you are completely right. The one thing when minicamp is over that you pray is that all your guys are just staying out of the news until training camp comes around.
That's it.
And so far, at least, that has been the case with the Giants. The only news has been, the offensive players getting together for a throwing session in San Diego. That is obviously perfectly okay. It's great. But yeah, this is the time of year where you want everyone staying out of the news. You want quiet. Let the headline start next week when the players report, or even tomorrow when the rookies report. Nothing until then, which again, at least for now, has been the case with the Giants. So we'll take it.
All right, so that's where it is right now. We will go to YouTube. We've got a question from Mark Bennett. Wants to know, does trading Darren Waller save anything toward the cap? It has nothing to do with the cap. This won't impact the Giants' finances at all.
No.
Now, having said that, anytime that you do make a deal and it's one of your top 51 players, yes, the cap usually does come into play in some way, shape, or form. But because he was already on the reserve retired list, it does not.
Yep. No financial impact other than, again, when you look towards next year's draft, the Giants now have an extra 6th-round pick to somewhat account for. But
right, that
will not be anything that Joe Shane or the front office will be thinking about, at least in terms of salary cap-wise.
No.
Until after the season, until after next free agency even. So it's a while before anyone has to concern themselves with that part.
All right, so SS also hits us up on YouTube. He says, who is the player that has the most pressure on them to show up in training camp? Well, I think that's an interesting question, and we could probably look at it from a lot of different angles here. I think, to be frank, the guy who's coming in with a tremendous amount of hype and expectations, Abdul Carter. I think everybody expects him to come in and erupt right away. There's a lot of hype on him, and justifiable. He's a great player. He was taken number 3 overall in the draft. So I totally understand if you want to look at it from a hype perspective. If you want to look at it from a more realistic perspective, I think Andrew Thomas, coming off his injury, we've talked about this at left tackle. He is such a critical part of what the Giants do, because when he has been out with injury, the offensive line has crumbled. So there's a tremendous amount of pressure. It may not be self-induced. Maybe he doesn't feel it. But there's a lot of pressure on this offensive line to do well, and Thomas is the linchpin.
For sure. I mean, you and I have spoken about that countless number of times on the show. I wouldn't put him in that category, though, only because the only thing with Andrew Thomas showing up at training camp is whether or not he's healthy. If he's out there, I don't think any of us have much concern about his level of play.
No, not at all. It's just put him in bubble wrap and don't let him get injured.
Yeah. Whether or not he actually is, out there and participating fully, that is certainly a big question. That's not how I read the question.
There's a lot of ways to look at it.
The way that I
Please.
read the question is just which player needs to, I guess, I know they put show up, but I think they meant step up and have a strong summer training camp performance. And for me, there's just 3 guys immediately that come to mind, and I don't think it's frankly close between these 3 and then the rest. I'll start on defense, because there's only one guy on defense I think is looking at some pressure, and that is Deonte Banks. Because he's heading into year 3. He had a rookie year that he showed flashes of being, that number 1 corner for the Giants. And then last year did not take the year 2 step that the Giants and he himself probably hoped that he was going to take. So going into year 3, I think he has some pressure. I mean, the addition of Paulson Adebo does help take some pressure off, because Paulson Adebo is the team's number 1 cornerback now. They signed him to a contract. He's getting paid to be a number 1 corner. He will most likely, I would think, be matching up against the other team's top wideout more often than not. I don't know if he will necessarily shadow across the field. They might just say, Paulson has the left side or the right side, and then Deonte Banks or Cordell Flott has the other. But Paulson Adebo was clearly brought in to be the team's number 1 cornerback. But Deonte Banks, I think going into training camp, he is probably the favorite to be the number 2 cornerback, but that's not something that's just going to be handed to him. He's going to have to go out and earn that other starting spot over Cordell Flott, over some of the younger guys the Giants have at cornerback. So on the defensive side of the ball, I get where you're coming from with Abdul, but I guess for me, just what I saw from the spring, which, as we've said many, many times, there's no contact in spring, so take everything with a grain of salt. But what we did see from Abdul, I don't have much or any concern about him. I think he's going to come out next week and almost immediately start showing out.
Yeah. It depends on the context when you say pressure. What's the context?
Yeah.
Carter's got all this hype. That's the pressure on him.
That's true.
I agree with you in terms of level of play. Banks has to. But by the same token, and you want to look at this a third way, how about Holland and Adebo, who got big money at the top of the free agent market? And if they don't live up to the contract that they signed, that's a lot of pressure.
That is a fair point. That is a totally fair point. I guess I didn't think of it that way, because
there's a lot of ways to look at this.
I took you're right. I just took it as guys that have not maybe played up to expectations in the previous seasons and that really need to this year. So again, Deonte Banks is the one guy when you look at it that way, I think, on the defensive side of the ball. And then there are 2 guys on the offensive side of the ball that fit that same exact bill. We'll start with the offensive line. Evan Neal, obviously finally made the transition from tackle to guard. There is some, encouraging feelings that he will be able to succeed, at least more so as a guard than he did as a tackle. We didn't really get to see much of it in the spring because, again, you don't really get much from the line play in the spring. Training camp, though, when the pads come on and the contact is allowed, that's going to be his first time to really show, like, hey, not only can I succeed in this, but I can thrive as a guard.
Mm-hmm.
And, he's going to at least be given an opportunity to earn that starting right guard position. It seems like it's going to be a competition between Evan Neal, Greg Van Roden. You can maybe throw in even like Jake Kubas, some of the other guys in that conversation. But Neal's going to be given an opportunity, and what he can do with that remains to be seen. But going into year 4 now, after the Giants decided not to pick up his 5th-year option, like there's no doubt about it.
Mm-hmm.
This is a very big season for Evan Neal, and it's the time for him to finally show that he can be a successful offensive lineman. So I would say he probably, in my opinion, is looking at the most pressure going into this training camp to show up.
Well, it's truly a make it or break it for him.
Yeah.
I mean, if he's going to be a Giant and a productive Giant, he's got to do it now or it's over.
Yep, especially because of the change in position.
Yeah.
Now is the time. And quite frankly, not far behind him, in my opinion, is Jalen Hyatt, who's going into just as big of a year 3 as Evan Neal going into year 4. Jalen Hyatt, the Giants moved up in the draft a couple of years ago to take him in the 3rd round. Last year, he had eight total receptions. That's obviously not good enough for anyone, let alone someone that the Giants had plans for to be a big part of this offense. I will say, Jalen Hyatt looked very good in the spring. Those of us, the Giants.com writers, kind of all agreed that he was probably the biggest offensive standout in the spring. He clearly showed that him and Russell Wilson have already developed a pretty strong chemistry and pretty strong connection. But again, similar to the offensive line play, you definitely can gain more from the wide receiver cornerback matchups, but in those matchups, the cornerbacks, there's no press coverage. They're not allowed to make contact with the receiver. So once training camp starts and those cornerback wide receiver matchups can be legit matchups, they can play the way that they would in an actual game, that will be a chance for Jalen Hyatt to show that his strong performance in spring wasn't just a fluke, and that it was the start of what we hope to be a strong year 3 in the Giants offense.
I totally agree with Hyatt. In fact, I probably would have put him even ahead of Neal, to be honest.
That's totally fair.
But in any event, Brandon Thomas comes on our YouTube page and does comment he thinks Jalen Hyatt as well. And that makes perfect sense. The only reason that I might put Hyatt over Neal, and it's a very small reason, is because, quite honestly, to this point, Neal's been kind of a flame out. And if he doesn't do anything, I don't think anybody is going to be really let down by it because they're not expecting much from him, at least the people outside the building. They're not expecting much from him. They're not expecting him to win the job. You and I are telling people that he's in the competition. Most people outside this building don't think he's got a chance in heck about winning it.
No, that's true. But
so in that regard, yes, there's self-imposed pressure in the building because they'd love him to be productive. But outside the building, I don't know that any fan is going to be let down if he doesn't win the job. I think they will be let down and disappointed if Hyatt doesn't do anything in his 3rd NFL season.
I agree. But, going into this year, Jalen Hyatt right now, he's the team's number 4 receiver.
Yeah.
Malik Neighbors is above him, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Darius Slayton just got re-signed to a multi-year contract. He's above Hyatt. And Wan'Dale Robinson is the starting slot receiver. So
no doubt.
I kind of think that, at least right now, in terms of lineup-wise, they're in sort of similar positions, Neal and Hyatt, in that they're not being penciled in as the starters at their respective positions, but they will be given an opportunity this summer to show that they deserve to at least be in the conversation for the starting lineup. I do think Evan Neal has a, easier path to the starting lineup than Hyatt.
Yeah. Sure.
Because it would be tough at this point, in my opinion, for Hyatt to leapfrog Darius Slayton, and they do have similar aspects to their game. But if Hyatt can have a strong training camp and show that, he's taken a step in year 3, the Giants will find ways to get him on the field, and he will be given an opportunity to make an impact on the offense. Look, for sure.
I may not be reading outside correctly here, but I still think that there are people outside the building who have some hope and expectation for Jalen Hyatt. I think most Giant fans have already given up on Neal, To me, that's the difference between the two guys.
I do think there's
Expectations
at least
outside.
a somewhat, somewhat, I guess, uprising in encouragement about Neal with the move to guard.
I hope so.
From outside the building,
I've just, too many people have just buried him already that I think in a lot of Giants fans' minds, he's already forgotten.
Yeah, well, honestly, the best way to think about it now, in my opinion, is just go in with low expectations,
right.
and if he exceeds them, great. If not, it's what you expected.
All right, it's Dry X on YouTube says, what do you think our floor is this season, given we have the hardest schedule? I mean, if you're looking for a one-loss record, you're not going to get that from us, because there's no point in predicting a number of wins or losses. I think we all in this building and people on this show in particular believe that the roster is improved. I don't think anybody can argue against that. This roster is better.
100%.
Now, how much better? That's hard to say. And then how many wins will it translate into? That's even harder to say. So I'm not touching that one unless you have a floor you'd like to offer.
No, I don't want to give a win-loss number either.
It just doesn't make any sense.
It's just tough because as
what is the floor?
As the commenter wrote, the Giants do, going into the year, have the hardest strength of schedule in terms of 2024
percentage,
records.
Right?
But as we have discussed many times, as we see every year, last year's records mean diddly squat once the season starts, because it's a new season. So many teams go through big transformations, whether it's the coaching staff or the rosters themselves. So last year's record doesn't really matter that much, to be honest.
No.
But at the same time, if just looking at the opponents, most of the Giants' opponents this year made the playoffs last year. That's obviously tough going into the year. Tough.
Thanks for reminding us.
It's just the simple facts. So I'm with you. I don't want to give a floor. I mean, it's going to be a difficult schedule no matter how you put it, no matter how you look at it. But if the Giants can play up to their own expectations, then the difficult schedule won't matter much.
Here's what I will say. I will give you somewhat of an answer, and it's a really weak one. But since you asked, I'm going to attempt to give you a response. The floor for me is that they will be competitive well past what we've seen the last few years, when Halloween, Thanksgiving, the Giants were already out of the race. I will say this. I do think the floor is, at the very minimum, we get to Thanksgiving, you'll still be interested in looking at the standings and the scoreboard. That I will say. I think the team is going to be competitive at least 2/3 of the way through the season. I hope for more. I'm personally expecting more, but I'm going to say the floor is, for at least 2/3 of the season, you're going to be able to sink your teeth into Giants football without having to worry about being out of it.
Yeah.
How's that sound?
I can see that. And honestly, I think just no matter what the win-loss record might be throughout the season, this is the year that I feel like everyone is going to be keeping a very close eye on the Giants the entire season, because obviously we've spoken about Abdul Carter, but there was another first-round pick the Giants made, which we don't know when Jackson Dart will get into the game action.
We went for almost 45 minutes without mentioning his name.
We don't know when he's going to go in, obviously. Paul and I have absolutely no idea. We can guess, but we don't have any actual idea. It depends on how the season is going, but chances are he will get in at some point. And then whenever he does get in, how he performs, that's going to obviously be a very, very big storyline for the Giants. And there's a good chance that it doesn't happen until much later into the season. So even if the win-loss record is not where any of us hope it is, come Thanksgiving break, Thanksgiving time, there is a good chance that either he will have already gone in or the Giants will be preparing him to go in around that time, even if the season is not going well, which will obviously keep things very entertaining for us throughout the entire season. Because even if the Giants' win-loss record, is not that great this year, if Jackson Dart goes in, even if it's for the last month of the season, the last 4 games after the bye week. If he comes in and plays well and looks really strong, that will give all of us so much confidence going into next year that this team is ready to take a really big step up. Obviously, we hope it comes this year, but the development of Jackson Dart is one of the most important things.
It's huge.
Even if it's not till the very end of the season.
It's huge. Jeff Smith wants to know, what will the rookies do next week besides getting weighed and running around in shorts, helmets, and T-shirts, Paul? Okay, Jeff, not a whole lot. They'll get acclimated. That's what this is about. This is about getting them back in here this week. They come in tomorrow, okay? And they will slowly be weaned into the process of being a rookie NFL player. It's just that simple. Next week, on the 22nd, the Giants players, the veterans, the rest of the roster, is required to report. They will go through conditioning drills, conditioning tests, and then the following day, they will then get out on the field. Now, here's what I can tell you, because this is not a secret. We're not allowed to give you all the practice plans for the training camp. That we cannot do. But what I can tell you is, because this is common knowledge around the NFL, that first week of training camp, nobody is in full pads. Nobody. All right? We're talking shirts, shorts, possibly shells by the end of the week. Maybe. That's the half shoulder pads on top of the shoulders. That's it. So that first week, again, it's the 22nd is Tuesday, right?
The 22nd is next Tuesday.
Okay. 22nd is Tuesday. So there will not be any fully padded practices until the following week. That we can tell you, because that's commonplace around the NFL. Nobody practices in full pads that first week. So I don't know if that kind of answers your question, Jeff, but that's what we're looking at. I will tell you, though, I believe some of the rookies already came in today. Not to officially report, but they're doing some work in the weight room and stuff of that nature as they get some of their conditioning stuff done.
Yeah. Tomorrow is the big report day for them. The whole rookie class will be in the building, which will be good, like you said, to kind of just get them back in the groove a week prior to the rest of the team showing up. I'm just ready for this to start.
Yeah, tell me about it. Tell me about it. All right, so anyway, that's where we are. El, let's see. Well, we got a couple more questions here. I'm sorry, I didn't see these a moment ago. Darren Andrioli says, why is Evan playing left guard instead of right guard? Well, John Runyon was still coming off injury. Remember, he got hurt at the end of last season. And because he was kind of unavailable, they're bringing all the injured guys along very slowly with a very, very turtle-like schedule. During the course of the offseason program, Runyon wasn't doing his usual stuff at left guard.
Not his usual stuff. He did get in a little bit, though. It's not like he was completely... I just want... Because there were other guys that we saw that did not participate at all in team drills.
Neighbors.
Like Neighbors, like Andrew Thomas. Runyon did get in a little bit. So
very...
Not a lot, but...
minuscule.
Some action, at least a little bit.
The point is they had to find ways to get those snaps done in drills and in the practices. So with all that extra snap time available at left guard, Neil did a lot of work in there.
Yeah.
Pretty simple. All right, let's see. Valone says, I hope we find our identities on defense and offense this season and then build upon that. We have to be realistic and build the team the right way. Well, I don't know that anybody would disagree with that. I mean, what did we hear from the coaches? I want to say both Dable, was it Mike who also said it, Kafka, or was it only Shane Bowen? I'm going to jog your memory here for just a second. But at least two of the three coordinators talked about how they did pile a lot of stuff onto these guys during the offseason, as coaches usually will do, because they want to know how much these fellas can retain. I got the impression, especially when Dable was talking about Dart, that they really stressed him out by giving him a lot to lift, and he did a pretty good job of retaining stuff, at least at that point.
Yeah, I mean, at least the first part, Jackson Dart himself said that the team gave him a whole lot, and that at the very beginning he felt, maybe a little bit overwhelmed, but then he very quickly was able to adapt and pick things up, and he said it wasn't long before he was just feeling very comfortable in this offense, which is obviously very great and encouraging thing to hear from a rookie, going into a completely new system. But yeah, just going to the question V-Lone put, yeah, this is completely right. Having to be realistic is the biggest thing I take from this comment, because to be realistic, the Giants won 4 games last year. You can't expect to go from 4 wins to 14 wins overnight.
Well, 3
wins. Sorry,
it's all right.
Yes, 3 wins to 14 overnight.
We're both rusty today.
It's building. It's a process to build a team the right way, and I do have a lot of confidence that is what have been being done the last couple of off seasons, and I do think the team will take a step in the right direction. Now, will that be as big of a step as some fans probably hope? Maybe not, but I do think that we will be taking a step in the right direction on both offense and defense. I think the identity of this team and the strength of this team is going to lie within the defense. I don't think that's, me going out on a stretch.
Don't forget special teams.
Special teams as well.
That's going to be, they're going to have a major factor.
That was clearly an emphasis in the offseason.
Without a doubt.
Based on some of the free agents that the Giants brought in, who are known for being special teams aces. So clearly, you're right. Cannot overlook special teams, but I think it's fair to say the strength of this team probably will lie in its defense, because this defense has the potential to legitimately be among the best in the NFL this year. I'm not saying it will be. It has the potential if each level of the defense plays up to, what they easily can play up to. It's not like I'm saying that, players X, Y, and Z all need to make big jumps in order for the defense to play well. If the guys just play up to what their baseline is, the defense will take a big step from where it was last year. And if some guys outperform maybe just that baseline expectations, then the unit has a chance to be something really special. And on offense, again, a lot of the pieces on the offense are the same as last year, which I know has some fans a little concerned, but they revamped the most important position on the field, which is the quarterback position. There was so much work done. We've spoken about it endlessly for months now. We don't have to go into it again, but the whole quarterback room is going to be completely different from last year. Right now there's 4 guys. The only one that's returning from last year is Tommy DeVito, and we don't even know for sure if Tommy DeVito will be on the roster come week 1.
That is true.
There's a chance that all 3 quarterbacks could be different from last year. So that is a monumental change. And then the other part is just having a healthy offensive line, which, we still don't know for sure if everyone will be back in time for week 1, where you can't make any guarantees. But if Andrew Thomas is back and starting at left tackle week 1, and the rest of the guys who seem to be on pace to be starting week 1, the only one I guess would maybe be in question is Runyon, but the fact that he was out there at all in the spring makes me think he should be okay for the start of the season. The offensive line, the first 6 weeks of the season, outside of the week 1 disaster against the Vikings, they were solid. It wasn't an elite offensive line, but it also wasn't one of the worst offensive lines. It was kind of middle of the pack, which if the Giants were to get middle of the pack play from the offensive line this year, with the addition of Russell Wilson at quarterback.
What's my magical word? Functional.
That's
the magical word.
Functional offensive line.
Functional offensive line. That's all you need to have.
Which, if Andrew Thomas is healthy, I have no reason to believe that this line won't be functional.
Yep.
And now, that might be a big if, because we don't know what the status of Andrew Thomas is. But if he is out there and the rest of the starters are out there with him, I don't see how this won't be at least a functional offensive line, which is all this offense needs to take a big step from where it was last year.
Now, AJS, and I guess that's an abbreviation. I don't think it's AJs. I think it is AJS, says we're going to the playoffs. Teams unproven due to how young they are. This will be a great showcase to see what we can see. He lists Cam, Tyrone, Neighbors, and our dual vertical tight ends. We can score points. I don't know who Cam is. Is there a Cam on this offense?
Scadaboo?
Oh, okay. I still call him Cameron. I don't call him Cam. He's Cameron.
I feel like he goes by Cam Scadaboo.
He does go by Cam, but I kind of know him as Cameron.
All right.
But okay. I gotta ask him what he wants to be called, by the way, because a lot of people call him Scat.
Yeah. That's true.
That's the other problem. So, in any event, yes, you're right. This offense certainly has a lot of ability. They still got to be able to put it together, and obviously it goes back to the offensive line because that's the foundation of everything you do on offense. If that line does not gel correctly and become functional, all this other stuff doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, look, outside of Malik Neighbors last year, there's no one else on the offense that you could say. I mean, I guess Tyrone Tracy had a pretty good year as well, but
yeah, well, Tracy had a good year,
outside
but
of
he's not a headache player.
No, but like outside of those two, like no one else you can really say in the Giants offense had a good year of the playmakers, and a big part of that was because the poor quarterback play, which at least in part was due to just inconsistent offensive line play. If the offensive line can just, again, give you functional play out there, that's going to raise the floor of this offense, because that means that's going to allow Russell Wilson time to operate in the offense, and we all know he's been doing it long enough. Given some time in the backfield, Russell Wilson will be able to operate this offense and have it, again, is a functional unit for sure. And talking about all these young players, you get solid, functional offensive line play, that's going to allow all of these playmakers the opportunity to truly showcase their capabilities.
Mm-hmm.
Without the offensive line play, none of those guys are going to have the time or the opportunities to show anything.
Well, A. Rothman 12 asks us on YouTube, biggest question going into training camp, and doesn't it always have to be the offensive line until they prove otherwise?
For over a decade now.
I mean, that's just a given.
I will say that if, again, it could be a big if, but if the unit is healthy going into this year, it will likely be the most confident I felt about the offensive line, at least in a while.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I'm going to have to wait and see Andrew Thomas out there before I can really say that I feel comfortable with the unit.
The one thing that Joe Shane, the GM, has said time and time again during this offseason, he continues to talk about how many bodies they brought in. He's a big believer, at least right now, that the Giants have numbers there.
They for sure do.
That's what he's hanging his hat on. They've got numbers. We don't know how these guys are going to play out, but he knows he's got numbers. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, like, look, one of the biggest competitions in training camp to watch will be how does the bottom of the offensive line depth chart play out. And for the
no doubt.
And for the first time in a while, there will be guys competing, and there could be guys that don't make it that will then get picked up by other teams. In years past, when the Giants decided, this offensive lineman's the first guy out,
mm-hmm.
most of the time that guy did not get picked up by another team.
Right.
And there's a reason for it. The depth along the offensive line is certainly better than it has been in years. That was clearly a priority. I mean, James Hudson was one of the first moves the Giants made in free agency.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not to be a starting lineman. They brought him in to be a very solid backup at tackle. Stone Forsythe was another pickup they made pretty early on. Brought Aaron Stinney back. Marcus Bowe was used with the 5th round pick. The Giants prioritize, just like they, we talked earlier with bringing in some special teams aces, clearly having depth along the offensive line so there wouldn't be a situation like there was last year or even the last 2 years. Clearly that was a priority for Joe Shane in the front office this offseason. All
right, we got a couple of more quarterback comments here. Villone says, he's talking about Jackson Dart, says he just wouldn't want to throw him in early when you have Jameis Winston and you also have Tommy Cutlets. I like how the Packers handled Love at quarterback. Had some inconsistencies last year, for sure did Love, but they're hoping things will be better this year. And then Brandon Thomas also says he's speaking of the quarterback room. With Tommy DeVito being the only one in the room who knows this offense, what would it be like for this room to go through the season without a system-knowledgeable quarterback? He is saying that he assumes DeVito doesn't make it through waivers. He can't see the team keeping 4 QBs on the roster. Well, we've told you all along, there's not going to be 4 on the 53. That's just impractical. It does not make any sense. I happen to believe, I think you agree, if DeVito gets waived, if there's nothing out of the ordinary that happens, the 3 quarterbacks on the 53 are going to be Dart and Winston and Wilson. That's it. They're not gonna keep a fourth on the 53. That's not gonna happen. So if those three guys are fine, DeVito is going to get waived. Unless somebody trades for him, he's going to get waived. Then you got to worry about him getting picked up. I absolutely believe he will get picked up. And he's not going to be able to come back on the practice squad. If he does, hallelujah, I'd be thrilled to see it. I just don't think he makes it back.
I agree. I think he's won enough games as, a third-string quarterback these last 2 years to deserve a spot on an NFL roster. But given the work that the Giants have done on the quarterback room this offseason, barring something unforeseen, I am with you. I don't think it's going to be, on this roster. Again, barring some unforeseen changes, which we see every year. That could easily happen. But, what would it be like for the room to go through the season without a system-knowledgeable quarterback? Well, let's not forget, while he is new, Russell Wilson is not new to the NFL.
No.
He is just about as veteran of a quarterback as you could bring in and has a very, very, positive reputation around him as a leader and someone that is able to pick up offenses. I mean, this is now his fourth team.
Yeah, but here's the other thing. He's almost 15 years in the league, and Winston, I think, is like in the league for 11 years.
Winston was 2015 NFL draft.
Okay, so, you're talking about between the two guys, that's 24 years of experience.
And it's guys that have already, switched teams and have already been able to pick up new offenses. I mean, we saw Russell Wilson moved first it was Denver.
Yeah.
And then it was Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
And, obviously that first season in Denver was not good.
No.
But the blame does not fully go on Russell Wilson for that.
And let me say something about Wilson. I want to just pause 1 second here because I want to interject this. Most fans think that he was a disaster in Denver. He was not a disaster in his second year in Denver.
No, not at all.
He actually was playing. Yeah.
The first season was overall a disaster.
Everything about the Broncos was messed up.
Yes.
But that second season in Denver, it wasn't that he was terrible. He got benched because of the injury clause in his contract.
Yeah.
A lot of folks are under this perception that his 2 years in Denver were a mess. And, he was terrible. He got benched. Nobody wanted him. That's not what happened. He played well his second year in Denver. He was benched because of an injury clause, much like the Giants had the same situation with Daniel Jones. They didn't want to have to pay guaranteed money the following season, so that you got to keep him out of the lineup because if he gets hurt, you're on the hook for an injured player.
And he still started 15 games that year. We're only talking about the very last 2 games of the season that he did not play. And in those 15 games that year, 26 touchdowns to 8 interceptions.
Tell me you wouldn't take that.
I would sign up for that in a heartbeat. Are you kidding?
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I'm with you. The second season was not bad at all. It was clear that was Sean Payton's first season in Denver. It was clear that he had already decided in the offseason that the team was going to move on from Russell Wilson. They wanted to bring in a quarterback in the draft, which they ended up selecting Bo Nix and all of that. But, yeah, him getting benched that year had nothing to do with his level of play, because I'm with you. He was very solid in that second season as Denver, and he was solid last year in his first season with the Steelers in a very heavy run-first offense where reports have come out since that there may not have been the best connection between him and the offensive play caller, which, could have also played a role in, the passing yards maybe not being as high as some people would like. But Russell Wilson has shown that he is able to go to a new team and pick up the offense pretty quickly and get comfortable with it.
Yep.
So if Tommy DeVito ends up not being on the 53-man roster and the Giants have 3 quarterbacks that are in their first year in the system, in Brian Daboll and Mike Kafka's system, that does not concern me because they also have had all offseason. All 3 of the, Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston have been on this team since March. Jackson Dart joined a month later. It'll be months that they've had to learn the whole playbook, have meetings with Brian Daboll and Mike Kafka, Shea Tierney, get everyone on the same page. So if that ends up being the case where the Giants have 3 new quarterbacks in their quarterback room, which seems like the likely scenario, that does not concern me at all. And I think it also helps that your offensive coordinator is a former quarterback himself that knows the position. So all of that, I think, helps me feel pretty confident in that having a quarterback that, is beyond year 1 in this offense that won't really matter come the start of the season.
These QBs have actually talked about the fact that Kafka was a QB, and they like that.
They love that. Yeah, so that's big.
So that's not just talk. That's something that they're actually believing in. A couple items, as always, the Giants TV app is available. It's free. You can get all kinds of nice, fun things on there and some highlights. It is always there on all of your iPhones and all of your Androids if you want to download the Giants TV mobile app. Giants season ticket memberships for the 2025 season are also available. You can catch the season here at MetLife Stadium as well as during non-game days. All you have to do is go to giants.com/tickets to get information about your membership. The Giants Huddle has a ton of interviews. John did a bunch before we went on break. They have been pumping them out like left and right on the website. What is up there right now? Do you know?
I don't know if it's been posted yet, but sometime today, if it's not already up, there will be John's conversation with some of the edge rushers.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot exactly who, because I know there's at least one of them is getting his own standalone interview that's dropping, I believe, tomorrow, which is Brian Burns.
Okay.
Today would be several of the other edge rushers, maybe Kayvon and someone else. I'm not sure if it's up yet, but yeah, John sat down with a couple of the edge rushers. That will be going up today. Oh, it is up. Okay.
It is. Okay. What do you got?
See real quick. It just says Giants edge rushers.
Everything about this day has been discombobulated. We are totally thrown off course by being out of practice for 2 weeks. So we do apologize for that.
But also on Friday, over the weekend, we released the latest episode of The Drive, which has been Sean O'Hara sitting down or going on a little drive with some of the assistant coaches. On Friday, we posted Marquand Manuel, who was in charge of the DBs, talking about all the team's DBs, expectations for the group. And I believe the next one, which is either going today or tomorrow, will be Liddell Betts, the running backs coach, talking about that room. So those have been very interesting and entertaining to watch. And kind of, we don't get to hear much from the assistant coaches. We don't hear from them too often, especially sort of in-depth interviews like this. So I highly recommend giving those a watch.
Okay, folks, we hope to have all of our technical difficulties squared away by tomorrow. When you come back to Big Blue Kickoff Live, it's presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. As always, you can catch an archive of the show on the Giants mobile app, podcast platforms everywhere, and at giants.com/podcasts. We have come to you from the Giants Podcast Studio, presented by Hackensack Meridian Health. Keep getting better. That'll do it for today's show, folks. Thanks for sticking with us. Thanks for your patience. For Matt, I'm Paul. We'll see you again next time.